Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, very, very dramatic developments now over the weekend regarding this continuing standoff with the regime in Tehran. So, as you know, President Trump, 10 days ago, was getting ready to launch, in his words, the biggest attack since World War II. It was going to be an absolutely devastating military campaign. He was going to destroy Iran from the air using missiles, sea power, and basically decapitate not just the regime, but now begin to really obliterate their civilian infrastructure, whether it be bridges, power plants, maybe even the takeover and capture of Karg Island. At the last possible second, he was approached by Iran, he says, as well as their neighbors, who feared that this would destabilize the region. And they said, let's give talks or peace another chance. And so they have been talking. Now, what has come out is the following. Iran refuses to speak directly to American negotiators. Their top diplomat came out and said, all we are negotiating now is with Oman, which is a country that shares the Strait of Hormuz with Iran, and that they are negotiating with Oman and through Oman with mediators indirectly with the United States. They are now on the verge, Oman and Iran are on the verge of a temporary deal on the Strait of Hormuz. They are going to be carving out the shipping routes that each country is responsible for. But this does not include the United States. Here is where the bombshell news now has come. They will not reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Yes, Iran will be responsible for certain lanes or certain routes. Oman will be responsible for certain lanes and certain routes. But as far as they are concerned, every ship that wants to go through must pay a toll, a fee, a charge, and must get the explicit permission of Iran to go through the Strait of Hormuz. As now Iran has said, it is their official position that they assert, and only they assert, control and sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. They say, in order to reopen the strait to full shipping, to full flow of oil and energy, the United States now must agree to certain conditions. Iran's top national security official, the secretary for their Supreme National Security Council, speaking on behalf of the entire regime, said the only way the Strait of Hormuz will ever be reopened fully, thoroughly, is if the United States does the following. Now listen to this. This is now their list of demands. Number one, essentially America must surrender. All U.S. forces must pull out from the region. They must pull out or from the proximity of Iran, and they must promise to no longer attack any of Iran's militias, including Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, in countries all over the Middle East. Furthermore, the naval blockade must be completely lifted immediately. All sanctions must be terminated permanently, immediately. Iran is now demanding that the United States pay reparations, damages, they say, for the war. And the United States must unfreeze all Iranian frozen assets. Now, if they do the following, then they will reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and oil and gas will begin to flow. Otherwise, it will remain closed unless you pay them a toll. Now, what this says, a couple of points, and then I'm going to open up the phone lines. What this now clearly says, and this is why it was a shocking decision that they released this publicly. And by the way, Iran's foreign minister, Araghchi, came out and said, we are not talking with America directly. We refuse to talk to America directly. And we will only open the Strait of Hormuz if all of our conditions are met. So, what they are now basically telling Donald Trump is they believe they have won the war. They believe that President Trump does not want to finish the war, that he wants out of the war. And I think now the Iranians have become convinced that our arsenal or our munition stockpile is so low that Trump cannot deliver on his promise to unleash this massive military campaign. And so essentially they are going for broke. They are basically laying down terms of surrender for the United States. They know that Trump wants the strait fully reopened, especially with the midterms now less than 3 months away. Gas at now $4 a gallon across the United States. Inflation starting to rear its ugly head. The midterms now, at least if you look at the polls, not looking good for Republicans. And so the mullahs now are essentially forcing Trump into two options. One, resume the bombing. In other words, they're calling his threat, they're daring him to follow through on his threat. You say you want to bomb us, you say this will be the biggest attack since World War II, go ahead, launch it, we dare you. Or, if you want the Strait of Hormuz opened, you need to accept a surrender, a defeat, a humiliating capitulation. Because make no mistake about it, if we unilaterally lift the naval blockade, if we now terminate all sanctions, which have been in place since 1979, if we now unfreeze all Iranian assets, never mind, my God, pay damages to them for the war, and we pull out all of our forces near Iran and all of our forces out of the Persian Gulf and vow to never threaten any of their proxies again, it's a defeat. It's a massive defeat for the United States. It's a humiliating defeat for the United States. The regime will be showered in money, billions and billions, what billions? Tens and tens and tens of billions of dollars. The United States will be effectively kicked out of the region, and Iran will assert full and unconditional control over the Strait of Hormuz. And so they're basically telling President Trump, if you want oil and gas prices to come down, if you want oil markets now to return to normal, if you want to end this massive reduction in oil and natural gas supply, if you want to have us lift the boot over the most important strategic choke point in the world, which is that strategic waterway, the Strait of Hormuz, where over a fifth of the world's oil and natural gas flows, then essentially now you must wave the white flag of surrender. Now, knowing President Trump as I do, I can tell you he is not going to do that. If he does do it, he won't do it. But if he does do it, his presidency is over, the American deterrent is over, and we are living in a new world order. If a second-rank power like Iran can inflict this kind of a humiliating surrender to the United States, we as a superpower are no more, and Iran now will become, without question, the hegemon of the Middle East. and China and Russia will look at the United States and say, we have been reduced to an absolute paper tiger. So it's clear to me that President Trump does not want to accept these terms and will not accept these terms. But the fact is now it has created a stalemate. Iran is essentially forcing him to choose door one or door two. I believe now he has no choice but to resume the bombing. The negotiations to me are pointless. If these are their demands, these hardline, absurd demands, then there's nothing for us to negotiate. So President Trump now is not going to have to either choose door two or make the biggest decision of his presidency. Either resume the massive bombing of Iran. Okay, on Friday, I just want to give you the whole background and I want to take your calls. On Thursday going into Friday, President Trump told reporters that a deal now with Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz was, in the president's words, quote unquote, imminent. He's been saying this now, by the way, for a while, but he said he was very confident after he was prepared to launch, as I said, the biggest military attack since World War II. But Saudi Arabia called, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, many of our allies in the Persian Gulf saying, please don't do it. It will lead to massive destabilization. We'll see millions of potential refugees from Iran. And of course, they will target our economies, our oil infrastructure with Iran's missiles and drones. It will devastate our economy. Please don't do it. Give negotiations another chance. President Trump said through back channels, the Iranian regime said the same thing. However, Iran now has come out very militant, honestly to me, extremely disrespectful, saying they refuse to even talk to American negotiators, only through intermediaries, because they say we are the aggressor and that we owe Iran. Iran is the victim. We are the aggressor. And as far as they're concerned, forget any discussion on the nuclear agreement. Just simply to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And so Americans can start enjoying lower gas and energy prices. Iran says that they now have a set of conditions which they say are absolutely non-negotiable. Mohammad Bagher Zolgadar, he is the secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, publicly told both the Iranian people and the U.S. government that if you even want to begin opening the strait, the United States would need to permanently end the war, lift its naval blockade, withdraw all of its forces, and all sanctions. I mean, you can see these, I mean, they're going for the jugular. Free Iran's frozen assets, all of it. Pay war reparations to Iran, end threats and insults, and stop military action against Iran's militia allies around the region, and then they will open the strait. Essentially, surrender. Surrender, and then shower the regime with tens and tens of billions of dollars. Now, privately, Trump is telling his aides that he's concerned about the impact of the war on the midterms. Publicly, he says, I don't care. You know, let the chips fall where they may. If I lose Congress, I lose Congress. Privately, he can see now the rise of Mamdani, of Abdul El-Sayed, of these very radical communist Democrats who are poised to win seats in both the House and in the Senate, and they are vowing to destroy Trump's presidency. So obviously, he'd like to keep a House and keep the Senate. So he has now told aides he does not need a nuclear deal with Iran, that he wants to scale back his objectives, that they've destroyed all three of their big nuclear sites. He believes they cannot reconstitute their nuclear weapons program, that if they try to rebuild their nuclear weapons program, he's been telling people privately and to some extent publicly, but privately he's really getting into some details, that we have the intelligence capabilities to monitor them, to watch them, to track them. And so if they should try to rebuild, Trump says we will then resume bombing and smash those nuclear sites again. So he doesn't want to get the enriched uranium from the ground. As he told aides over the weekend, it's so deeply buried, nobody except us or communist China can access it. And so what he's telling aides is, because it's buried so deep, we essentially have it, because the Iranians can't get to it. And so he's saying we're going to leave the enriched uranium in the ground. This is what he's telling aides. And we don't need to get a deal on Iran's nuclear weapons program, because essentially he has shattered their nuclear weapons program and they can monitor any attempts to reconstitute or rebuild. So all he's now focused on is a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. If he can get Hormuz reopened, with Iran committed to keeping it reopened, he will then declare victory and come home. Iran, sensing that Trump wants this deal, is now putting down the toughest possible conditions imaginable. And hence these hardline, to me, absurd demands. So this is where things stand right now. Trump can either completely surrender and capitulate, which is what essentially Iran is asking him to do, to reopen the strait. I don't think he'll do it. I think there's no chance, there's a snowball's chance in hell that he'll do it. Okay, my friends, as I said on X last night, but let me just repeat it, I think it's time to resume the bombing. I'm just calling it the way I see it. To me, door one is unacceptable, which is a surrender. I think to me that would be absolutely dishonorable and humiliating for the United States, and honestly very bad for the world. Number two, as I said, is to resume the bombing. In other words, to follow through on Trump's plan for this massive attack. There is door three, which is just wash your hands of the whole thing, don't sign anything, don't agree to anything, and just come on home. Just come home. Declare victory and come on home and let the rest of the world deal with the mess regarding the Strait of Hormuz. I don't quite like door three because, to me, you should finish what you start. And the Strait of Hormuz, this mess could take a long time to resolve. You know, the Europeans, the Indians, the Chinese, the Persian Gulf allies, the demining process, Iran wanting to assert control and imposing tolls. This thing could go on for months and months and months and months, which means oil and gas are going to remain extremely high, which means Trump's going to have a much weaker economy going into the midterms. So, to me, let's finish it once and for all, and we forcefully reopen the Strait of Hormuz using our military and our Navy. But that's me. I want to hear from you. What I can just tell you is this. There's now a sense. I just get this sense. I hope I'm wrong. I pray I'm wrong. But, you look at the Vietnam War. We never lost a single battle. But the political class, through either incompetence or treachery or lack of will, whatever it is, our politicians lost the war, even though we never lost a single battle. In Iraq, we never lost a single battle. In fact, when Bush implemented the surge, we pretty much crushed the insurgency. And then it was, of course, Obama who snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. So again, we never lost a single battle. And yet our politicians turned it into a defeat. Afghanistan. It was our longest war, over 20 years. We never lost a single battle. And we left with our tail between our legs. And so I think it's starting, there's a pattern now. We win wars on the battlefield, and then we politically lose them over and over and over again because of either a lack of competence, a lack of planning, a lack of will, whatever, a fickleness in the American public, whatever it may be. And now I'm starting to get the same sense here with Iran, that it's just, it's not the fact that we've won every battle, the fact that we have absolutely defeated, destroyed, and degraded Iran's military. And yet here we are again at the end game, and there's incoherence, there's hesitation, it's on again, off again, tit for tat bombing, ceasefire, no ceasefire, back to a ceasefire, no ceasefire, we have a deal, we don't have a deal is imminent, no, it's not imminent. And again, I fear that Iran will emerge, when everything is said and done, potentially stronger than when the war began. And this will be seen as another defeat for the United States. Not because we lost, we didn't lose, but because we didn't have either the strategy, the fortitude, the will to strategically convert this into a geopolitical victory. And honestly, I'm so sick and tired of this. I mean, I just want to say this. Hey, look, I hope Trump resumes the bombing. I hope he says to hell with it. I gave him one last chance. I gave him an off-ramp. And by the way, look at the ingratitude. Look at the ingratitude. These are the terms you come back with? So we lift the blockade lifts completely, all sanctions lifted. We end the war. We leave all our forces, leave the entire region. We pay you reparations. We unfreeze all of your assets. I mean, the only thing they're not asking for is that Trump kiss the rear end of their Ayatollah. That's it. Seriously, if I were them, I'd say, you know what, then here's a seventh condition. At the peace signing, you got to go, you got to kiss his rear end. Okay? He lifts up his robe and go in there for a kiss. I'm serious. These are your counter demands? So you've never been serious about reopening the strait. You've been stringing us along the whole time. You guys are a bunch of psychopaths. It's very obvious that hate us so much, as Iran's foreign minister said, we can't even stand the sight of you. We don't even want to negotiate with you face to face. That's how much we hate you. That's how much we disrespect you. Just the sight of you makes us want to vomit. So we're only going to use third parties or intermediaries. I'm tired. Look, if this is going to be now the American way of war, which is we fight, we win every battle, and then we blow it at the end game, again and again and again and again, then let's just not go to war. No, I'm serious. Just forget it. I mean, it does a lot more damage to do it this way than if you just didn't go to war. Because here's the problem. Part of our power
is the perception of our power. The world rightly fears us. We're a deterrent. But if the world starts to say, you know, guys, they ran out of Vietnam. They ran out of Iraq. They ran out of Afghanistan. Now they just ran out of Iran. The Americans cut and run. That's the American way of war. Yeah, you got to absorb a lot of punishment. It's true. They do a lot of bombing and yeah, they beat you. They kick your ass on the battlefield. No question. But if you hold out and hold out and hold out and absorb punishment and wait them out, the Yanks don't have the patience to finish anything off. Well, now your credibility is zero. Your allies don't trust you anymore. Like, for example, if I'm China, why wouldn't I attack Taiwan? I mean, it's Trump, and, you know, with him, you got to be careful. But especially since when Trump leaves, if I'm China, I'm like, guys, you think the Americans are going to fight it all the way out? No. They'll fight, maybe, and then eventually they'll leave. And that's the signal we're going to be sending to all of our enemies around the world. That our commitment means nothing, that our word ultimately means nothing, and that we may have the strongest military in the history of the world. But if we're not ready to fully use it to the end, then what's the point of using it? What's the point of having it? And so I think we're at a watershed moment now. I think Trump needs to make a fundamental decision. You cannot negotiate with them. It is now crystal clear. You're banging your head against the wall. In fact, to me, their demands are almost embarrassing to us as a country. And either you declare victory and say, let the world handle the Strait of Hormuz. I'm done. I've got the midterms to win. Or you finish what you started and launch the largest attack since World War II, and you shatter this regime into 1,000 pieces. I think he's got no other option, but that's me. So, my question to you, to the great audience of Kuhner Country, as things stand right now, and we clearly are at a pivotal moment, what should President Trump do? What do you want him to do? A, agree to Iran's demands, humiliating as they are. 2, or B, resume the massive bombing. Lines are jammed. Angelo in Rockland, you're going to kick us off, Angelo. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Yeah, my belief in this whole thing is the world economy could be at stake, so the world has to help us float in the Strait of Hormuz to keep things going. It shouldn't be the burden of the United States. We have every right to pound them into submission for what they've been doing to our soldiers in Beirut, on and on, as we all know. But even more so than that, Jeff, we have to confront what happened over the past couple of terms with other presidents, not even to give them the recognition of mentioning their names, because what they did was they infiltrated our country while we were sleeping at night by the bus loads and by train loads and by airplane loads at night, depositing everybody all over the country because we're at war, whether you want to say it or not, with Islam. They're here in the streets of New York giving us hell. I would bust them out like they bust them in at night with no one knowing, women, children, men, out. And that's the end of it. We're at war. They want to take us over, and that's what we're up against. The kind people of the United States have to wake up or have their head on the butcher block when it comes time that they're in charge. And that's as simple as it can get. We have to move forward and take out the enemy within. Let's go, and that's the end of it. And take the island of what's the name of that island?
Karg Island. That's their main oil export hub.
Have the world float out there. And, you know, you have to vote for Trump and for the American Act, because this is what they want. The enemy within is here, and they're doing a hell of a job taking us over without a bullet. We have to step up with our pens, or there's going to be blood on the streets sooner or later. And God bless America, and let's get it done.
Angelo, thank you. Thank you so much for that call. I appreciate it. Well, look, on the Save America Act, just so that everybody knows, Thune won. I mean, he got what he wanted, that little treacherous rhino. He now has, Senate is in recess. He has sent all senators away for, a 37-day vacation? So basically a 5-week vacation. So they're not coming back until, middle of September. There will be no Save America Act before the midterms. John Thune has now guaranteed that. So he sold us down the river. That's point number one. Point number two, very quickly. The Senate candidate for Michigan, the radical Islamo-communist nominee, Abdel El-Sayed, has been caught on tape with his buddy Hassan Piker, the other Muslim Marxist extremist. He's a full-blown Maoist, a communist, a big streamer, big podcaster, huge influencer on the Hamas wing of the Democratic Party, in which Abdul El-Sayed has been caught saying, not all people hate Muslims, but all Muslims hate Americans. So he's openly bragging about Islamic hatred for the United States. And what they're trying to do now, apparently word is broken over the weekend, that Obama, the dear leader, has personally taken over Abdul El-Sayed's campaign. He is going to run it the way he ran Biden's regime from behind the scenes. He is the puppet master. He's using all of his influence. And if you notice now, Abdul El-Sayed is everywhere. He is on CNN. He's on MS Now. He's on Meet the Press. You name it. NBC, CBS, ABC. And they're trying to humanize him. Pictures now of him and his wife with her hijab, eating pancakes. They're just that all-American Muslim family. That's all. That's all it is. And they've told him now, lay off on the anti-Semitism, the Jew hatred. Don't talk about Hamas. Don't talk about how much you love the terrorists. Don't talk about your support for Sharia law and for jihad. That, the way we did it with the dear leader, that we sweep that for a while under the rug. That we just keep in the back. Talk about affordability, price of gas, price of groceries, the need for Medicare for all. So they're trying to soften him, and they're desperately trying to mainstream him, and the media is doing everything in their power to basically whitewash him. And that's why now you've been seeing puff piece after puff piece after puff piece, and they're now scripting a narrative that, in fact, it would be a great thing for Muslim America if Abdul El-Sayed would win. It would show multiculturalism, inclusion, diversity, compassion. And look, he's just a Democrat who happens to pray to Allah 6 times a day, or whatever, 5 times a day. He prays 5 times a day to Allah. That's it. He wants Medicare for all, lower gas, lower food, lower energy prices, lower gas prices, lower groceries. That's all. Nothing here. So vote for Abdul El-Sayed. So the propaganda campaign, the lies, the misinformation, the disinformation, that's already now begun. And meanwhile, President Trump, it seems to me, really wants now out of this war. He clearly now sees what's coming with the midterms. He now sees this Islamo-Marxist threat that is clearly rising within the Democratic Party and within the country. And it's now become a quagmire. It's now become a bit of a war of attrition. And for whatever reason, I don't know if they don't have the munitions or at least the interceptors, to deal with an all-out massive attack. I don't know if that's the issue, but he's clearly very reluctant to resume a massive, broad air military campaign. And I think that's going to be the only thing that will break the Ayatollahs and this IRGC Islamo-fascist regime. So we're going to find out very soon, but I truly hope this doesn't end up like another Iraq or another Afghanistan or another Vietnam, where all we did was win, and then at the end, politically, it turns into a debacle. I think it would be horrible for Trump's presidency, and more importantly, I think it would be horrible for the world. But that's just me. 617-266-6868. Dave, our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent in the Pittsburgh area. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How you doing? How was your weekend, buddy?
Good. I mean, honestly, I'm a little tired. The kids, they kind of wear me out a little bit, but hey, that's okay. That's life, as Jeff, they say, you know?
Once in Germany, married to a beautiful Fräulein, my daughter-in-law. But, Jeff, doesn't it sound like Hakeem Jeffries is the speaker for the IRGC or the Ayatollahs, Jeff? The Democrats seem to sound like a lot like the Iranians, and the Iranians sound a lot like them, Jeff, because they want reparations. They're making demands from a so-called point of power. First of all, Iran, Ayatollah Hakeem Jeffries, you have no power. You've been asking for 49 years. We just happen to have stupid-ass presidents. And as far as Iran kissing us kissing their ass, Jeff, they can kiss my ass, okay? They can pucker up, kiss my badonkadonk for all it's worth, and kiss my ass. Because, Jeff, don't the Democrats and the Iranians sound a lot alike, buddy? Like I said, Hakeem Jeffries is your speaker of reparations. I mean, Jeff, they sound like my Congresswoman, Summer, a.k.a. Dummerly, Jeff.
Oh, there's no question, Dave. You're very perceptive. The Democrats and the Iranians have formed an alliance. Yeah. I think there's no question. No, look, you clearly see it now in this list of demands. What they want is to string now the negotiations. It's very obvious until November. And by the way, the Iranians now openly say, quote, these are their words, not the Democrats, their words. Trump is finished after November. Trump cannot prosecute the war after November. But why would they say that? Because the Democrats are telling them. And by the way, Abdul El-Sayed even admitted that over the weekend. He goes, yeah, I've been talking to everybody, the grand poobahs in the Democratic Party. You watch what we have in store for Trump. We're going to launch investigation after investigation. We're going to impeach him, and we're going to impeach Hegseth, and we're going to impeach RFK Jr. We're going to impeach, just Scott Bessent. We're going to impeach his entire cabinet. We're going to do something that's never been done before. We are going to paralyze this administration and reduce it politically to rubble. And they're going to cut funding to everything, including to the Pentagon, the Defense Department. Trump will not have any money to wage the war against Iran. So even if he wants to wage a war against Iran, no more money for Tomahawk missiles, no more money for cruise missiles, no more money for Patriot missiles, nothing. So it's obvious they're working in tandem. And Iran is getting a lot of their talking points from Democrats and Democratic leaders and Democratic senators. Because what they really want is they want him to open door number one, which is essentially to agree to sign to effectively a surrender. They want him to pay war damages, to humiliate him and humiliate the United States. To pay war reparations. They want him to pull all U.S. forces out of the entire region, lift the entire blockade, lift the sanctions, unfreeze Iran's assets. This will embolden, and by the way, this is what Obama's always wanted. because this will now completely empower and embolden the regime. They're going to be drowning in hundreds of billions of dollars. Once we're pushed out and kicked out of the region, Iran can easily then march towards the nuclear bomb, which is what Obama always wanted. And the United States will have been brought to its knees in a humiliating surrender and defeat. So that's why Obama is working with the Iranians, and the Iranians are working with Obama and the Democrats. And just so that everybody knows about Abdul el-Sayed, Obama is grooming him to be the first official American Muslim president. In fact, you're not going to believe this. They haven't even won the Senate race in Michigan, which is this November, and they're already talking el-Sayed for president in 2028. Remember, Mamdani can't run. They really want Mamdani. But the flaw with him is he was born in Uganda. So they can't do that. The Constitution bars that. You have to be born in the United States. But they realize with Sayed that he was born here. So they want him potentially to run in 2028. So this is the entire background and context to what is happening now in this battle of wills between Trump and the Ayatollahs. So I'm urging the president, remember I said it last week. I said, I think you're making a mistake. You're lying in bed with a bunch of vipers. They have no intention of negotiating in good faith. And now, this is a slap in the face. But again, I'm just calling it the way I see it. The reaction from Trump over the weekend was he wants to continue to play diplomacy, his words. He believes in the diplomatic long game, that the naval blockade will force them economically to come to the table, that the sanctions are biting, and that he is willing to outweight and outlast the Iranians. So he doesn't want to bomb. He wants to keep maximum economic pressure, and he thinks that will eventually break them or squeeze them to the point where they'll have no choice but to make a deal. So we'll see. But to me, I would, if I was advising him, I'd say, Mr. President, break them open like an egg. If we have the munitions, then that massive attack, you launch it, and you launch it with everything we have. But that's me. Dave, thank you so much for that call, as always, my friend. But you're dead on. There is now an unholy alliance between the Democrats and Iran. And their goal is to drag it out until November and keep gas and energy prices as high as possible so that Trump is, the weaker the hand he has going into November, the better. And then they take over the House and the Senate, and then they will force an Iranian victory the way the Democrats forced a communist victory in Vietnam after the fall of Nixon, and then with a weak Gerald Ford as president, they cut off all support to the South Vietnamese, and that's when Vietnam fell. So they want to repeat what happened in Afghanistan under Biden. They want to repeat what Obama did to Iraq, and they want to repeat what the Democrats did to Vietnam. 617-266-6868. That's why, to be honest with you, don't wait anymore. I don't want to give the blockade time, because if things go bad on November 3rd, you won't have a chance again to resume the bombing. If you can take them out now, take them out now. Agree, disagree? Ken in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Ken, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Ken.
Well, I love to say winning, winning, winning. This is a sober moment. So let's review where we're at. Not saying I'm pessimistic at all. I think we are in a much better situation now than we were 6, 9, 12 months ago. But there's a lot of situations of this that people aren't thinking through. So let's start with what you just described. Let's, get the job done. Whatever the cliche is, what does that entail? So escalate the bombing. Well, you know what a lot of people aren't thinking of? You remember Syria in what was it, 2015, Jeff? They had their big civil war. What was the big outcome from that?
Well, Al-Qaeda now is running the country.
Altered the history for the last 10 years and many years to come in Europe. What do you think the neighbors of Iran are thinking?
Well, that's what they fear. That's literally what they told Trump on the phone. They said, look, you go forward with this massive, attack, this massive bombing campaign. Oh, you'll break them. You'll shatter them you'll smash them to smithereens. He goes, there's no question. But then we're going to get millions and millions of these, refugees, migrants, whatever you want to call them. And remember, they're Shia. They're not Sunni. So they're going to have Shia Muslims pouring into Saudi Arabia, which is a Sunni state, Kuwait, a Sunni state, Bahrain, Qatar. These are all, very militantly Sunni states. And I don't want to get too much inside baseball, Ken, but Saudi Arabia is the home to the two holiest places in Islam, Mecca and Medina. And the Sunni Islamic world is very proud of that because Mecca and Medina is under Sunni control and Sunni authority and Sunni jurisdiction. You pour millions of Shiite Muslims into a place like Saudi Arabia, that could really, you'll have Sunnis and Shia at each other's throats. That could really destabilize Saudi Arabia. And that's why they called up Trump and they said, please don't do it. Let us talk to them. Let us negotiate. We're going to use mediators. And okay, I get it. From Trump's point of view, you could see, well, okay, yeah, geez, if I was in their shoes, I'd be thinking what they're thinking. But now that Iran has come out with these ridiculous conditions, I'm like, well, now you're making me look like a fool. Now you're making the United States look like a paper tiger on the world stage. So, to me, I'd call them up and say, okay, guys, you got a lot of money. Now it's time to put it into your, your defense, your military. You all have air forces, and we're going to have to take them out. I'm sorry, but they're leaving me no choice. Ken, am I wrong?
No, most of the very end conclusion I disagree with. I think we'll pinprick them. They're the highest people. And I also heard a rumor that they're going to concede the supreme leaders no longer alive. And I've heard the name of a cleric who's going to kind of own the operation, spelled Karoi. I don't even remember how it's pronounced. But that's just early information. But also what I'm perceiving from all of this is we are blessed with the El Saeed Mamdani movement because I don't see the Democrats necessarily winning. They're not going to win the Senate. We're going to take the governorship in Wisconsin, and I think it's a toss of the coin in the House. So, yes, we may not have as much money to fight the future, but the real good news is I was scared in March about, what are gas prices going to do with the strait closed down? Gee, it seems like the market's found a way around it. And there's going to be a lot more pipelines by the beginning of the year 2027. Oh, you know what? That one business model that Iran had, they just crapped on it.
Well, that's true, Ken. You're completely right. There's going to be a lot more pipelines. Saudi Arabia is building one. Other countries are building one that will go around the Strait of Hormuz. So you're completely right. Look, this is not going to, even just if we indulge ourselves and they take over the strait completely, just for the sake of argument. Yeah, it'll create a lot of shock in the global oil markets, but that's going to be short term because you got all these other pipelines now that are being constructed, and as you said, will be ready by next year. So that model is not going to last too long. Look, my hope is that the Democrats have gone so extreme, so far to the left, with the Mamdanis, with the Syeds. Mark in Medford. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Happy Monday to you, my friend.
Happy Monday to you, my buddy. What do you make of all this?
Well, first of all, I think it's comical that Iran is asking for and wants demands like they're holding us hostage. Okay, no, we set the demands, not Iran. And let's face it, Jeff, there was never a deal to be made. It was never going to happen because Iran, all they do is lie, and they're the biggest bull crap artists. I almost said it, the bull crap artists on the face of the earth. So, and as far as fine, you want us to leave the region? Well, here's the deal. Trump should tell them. I'll leave the region. I'm going to make Iran a parking lot, and then you're on your own. Then you tell NATO, go screw yourself. We're done being the police of everybody.
What do you think, Mark? What do you think Trump is going to do? I think this is now the question. He clearly called it off. You know, the Persian Gulf allies, the Saudis, the Kuwaitis, the United Arab Emirates, they don't want him to do the massive bombing for fear, as I said, it'll destabilize their economies and their country, which I understand, but, you know, you got to do what's in your best interest. And he's worried about the midterms. And again, you know, the closer we get, if gas keeps going up, he's going to be in a pickle because the DSA, they're running on the cost of gas, energy, affordability. They're making that hard pitch, and they're selling communism. They always sell communism. When times are tough, Charlie Kirk always said this. He said the reason why socialists are rising is because if people can't afford to buy a home, if they can't pay for groceries or they're struggling to pay for groceries and to pay their bills, socialism gives them an easy out. Socialism says, we'll take care of it for you. That's why it's so appealing. And so Trump realizes the DSA message, false as it is, fantastical as it is, destructive as it is, a failure as it is, but it's appealing to people because they're finding things expensive. Cost of living is high. And so he wants to bring gas down, energy down, inflation down. So he's kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. If you were Trump, what would you do?
It's hard to answer because I look at it this way. As far as the gas prices go, unfortunately, we have to be on the international market. We have more than enough oil to take care of anybody in this country and other countries. But unfortunately, we have to be on the international market. So that's out of the question. And say, you know what? Fine. We'll get out of Iran. You could keep your oil. You could keep your Strait of Hormuz and all that crap. But unfortunately, we can't. And Jeff, I really think, and then the other thing is if Iran started this, I can understand Trump saying, you know what, we're done, we're getting out. But you know what? He started it, Jeff. So now I think he has to finish it. Don't you think?
Oh, I agree. It's amazing how you and I are simpatico on so many issues. I so agree. You know, I think if you started it, you know the expression, you break it, you own it. Well, you know, you broke Iran. I mean, look, let's be honest, militarily, you know, I mean, they're never going to be the same, at least for a long time. And politically, he took out, you know, their supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. He decapitated so much of their political regime. So many IRGC commanders were killed. Look, we inflicted a real blow to the Iranian leadership. There's no question. And I think now, you know the expression, if you go for the king, you kill the king? You don't want to leave them wounded, but now able to rebuild. Because they're going to hit us back. They will. And they're going to hit us back very hard. whether it be attacking a base, attacking our troops somewhere in the Middle East, secretly working on a nuclear bomb, maybe even buying a nuclear bomb. What I'm saying is, when you start a war with Iran, you better finish it, because you're dealing with people who, A, want to die, they have a death cult, and B, I don't think there are any more vindictive people on earth than the Iranians. I mean, they live for revenge. They are consumed with hatred and revenge. And so, you know, to me, you start a war with them, you better finish it. If not, you know, it's like a snake. They're going to keep coming and coming and coming. Mark, final word to you.
Hey, Doc, well, a couple more things, Jeff, real quick. Number one, it would be a lot easier if we knew for a fact that Iran did not have nuclear capabilities, but they do, and they will have full capacity if we just leave. And number two, Trump knows that, and that's the one thing that's stopping him from backing out of this, that he knows.
Oh, you're right. No, he knows. Tim in South Dennis. Thanks for holding, Tim, and welcome.
Friend, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you, Tim?
I'm okay, and as always, I love you in a non-sexual manner, my friend.
Thank you, Tim. Tim, door 1, door 2, door 3. Trump now is at a crossroads after what the Iranians have now told him. What do you think he should do?
Well, the first thing to remember, an elephant in a room nobody talks about, is we have the Carter Doctrine, which, as far as I know, has never been, we've never walked away from that, which says, you know, we'll use any and all means to keep that strait open, including military force. I mean, I know Jimmy Carter issued that to more as a warning against the Soviets after they invaded Afghanistan. But as far as I know, it's still in effect, like the Monroe Doctrine is still in effect, and that's 156 years older than the Carter Doctrine. But this thing is underway. I think what Trump needs to do, what he probably should have done months ago, is I think he should seek a formal declaration of war, lay out everything these people have done, these radicals, ever since they came back to power in 78, 79. And then I think he needs to tell the Western world, listen, you'd better get on board, because they're as much a threat to you as they are to us. And I think this might sound crazy, but hear me out. It's like, I think even if quietly, I think even the Russians might get on board with that, because they have as much of a problem with these Islamic extremists as the West does. They may not talk about it much. And publicly, they may denounce it. Oh, you know, here we, you know, United States again going off. But they have as much problem with radical Islam as we do. I think quietly they might provide some help, maybe intelligence or something to that effect. And I think Trump should tell Western Europe, you know, if you don't get on board with us in this thing, especially look what just happened in Spain. It's like, you know what, this alliance is over because there's no need for it anymore. I mean, what do you think?
Well, Tim, I think I love your idea of going to Congress and asking for a declaration of war. The Democrats would be against him completely, all of them, to a man and a woman. The question is, would he have enough support among all Republicans? And with a razor-thin majority in the House, you've got Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins. It'd be very tough for him, I think, to get the votes in the Senate. And so I think that's a reason why he hasn't done it. But, you know, Tim, look, it's funny, Grace and I were talking about this, and she said, Jeff, what happened? If you look at American history, the one thing we used to be known for, whether you agree with the war, disagree with the war, we won our wars. I mean, from A to Z, we won it. We won the beginning, the middle, the end. It doesn't matter. 1776, we won it. 1848 against Mexico, we won it. The Civil War, we won it. World War I, we won it. Actually, the Spanish-American War, we won it. The World War I, we won it. The World War II, we won it. I mean, we won. And then something changed. And you can see what changed. Now, we had a formula that worked. And for the life of me, I don't understand why we abandoned this formula. You declare a war. You go to Congress. You get a declaration of war. Now, why is that important? A, then the people are invested in victory. The people have stamped this, there's given their stamp of approval to the war. So now the entire country is mobilized for war. And then you use every economic, military, cultural, political, social means, tools available to achieve that victory. And you do it quickly and decisively and without mercy. And when you start it, you finish it. And the war ends with terms of surrender that we give to them and they sign. We don't negotiate. We're not haggling. We're not going back and forth. We dictate. You've lost. We're going to be humane about it. We're going to be civilized about it. Okay, we're not going to, give you a victor's peace that, punishes you forever, obviously, but you're going to acknowledge that you lost, and these are the conditions upon you signing the terms of surrender to end the war. I don't understand, Tim. We've given that up. We've given that up. Vietnam, especially Iraq, Afghanistan, now this war. So we don't do a declaration of war. Hell, we don't even do an authorization from Congress. We get nothing. And we have an all-volunteer military, so only a small part of the country is actually fighting. And we get bureaucrats involved, we get politicians involved, and we never fight. It's never anymore total victory, total war, and we win no matter what it takes. Those days are gone. We don't do total wars. We don't do total victories. We don't insist on a total defeat. And I think that's why we keep, we win the military battles, as I said, but politically we bungle it at the end. And, now you got the Democrats, an open fifth columnist, forget sabotaging the war. Now they're trying to put Islamists in the corridors of power. Now they want Islamists in Congress, in the Senate, and soon in the White House. So Trump is now fighting a multi-front war. And I think at this point, Tim, look, yes, do I think other allies should help us? No question. Do I think NATO, have they been riding our back? Yes. Do I think it's time for other countries to, stand up and do their fair share? Yes. But they're not going to. And this is what it is now. And my advice to the president, again, unless we don't have the munitions, if we don't have the munitions, that's a different story. But if we have the firepower, and Trump publicly insists we do have the firepower, well, Mr. President, I'm sorry, this is a no-brainer. If you can launch the greatest attack since World War II, and this will end the war once and for all, Mr. President, what would Lincoln do? What would FDR do? What would General Patton do? What would MacArthur do? There'd be no question. There'd be none. Launch the attack and break them in half. That's what a president would do in the past. And then the only thing you have ready is you put up, seriously, you have a piece of paper, which is terms of surrender. And one of them is you're going to allow for the flow, the open, free flow of all oil and gas through the Strait of Hormuz. Period. Full stop. And we want a different regime. We want either the king comes back, the Shah, either he comes back, but some kind of, you have elections, I don't care. But we want a pro-Western or at a minimum pro-American, even a neutral government. I don't care. Don't be pro-American, but you can't be Islamist anymore. That's it. If you want to be, Austria or Switzerland, go ahead. You want to be Switzerland? I don't care. But we've got to have a regime in place there that is no longer a threat to the region, to the Europe, to the West, and to the world. Like, enough. We've been putting up with this now for 47 years. But here are our terms of surrender. Now, until you're ready to sign it, the bombing doesn't stop. So we can either do this the hard way or the easy way. And I would say to them, look, I suggest you sign the terms of surrender because your people are going to rise up and they're going to do to you what they did to Gaddafi in Libya. Okay, with the stick up the you-know-where. That's what they're going to do to you. They're going to tear you limb from limb. This way you may live. Now, you want to die for Allah, that's no problem. We can arrange it. But I think it's time now that we, unleash the dogs of war. It's time to unleash the dogs of war. Now, if you're not willing to do that, then don't go to war. Then don't go to war. And honestly, Tim, and I mean this because we have the best fighting force in the world. Our vets are the best. I'm telling you, they're the best. And the members of our military are the best. Nobody can beat us on the battlefield. But we're constantly betrayed by politicians back home. So if we're not willing to do that, then just don't go to war. But don't do what we've been doing now for how long? As I said, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. Now, I hope not, but it's starting to look a little bit like it now with Iran.
Okay, I want to ask you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Is it time for peace at any price with Iran? This is now what the regime in Iran is essentially pushing. They have come out now with their offer, saying you want the Strait of Hormuz open and this war over. Here's what it's going to cost you. It is going to cost you now. You have to pull all U.S. forces out of the region, lift the entire naval blockade, lift all sanctions, pay reparations or damages for war, and unfreeze all Iranian assets. In other words, you're going to have to pay, and you're going to have to vow that you will never attack us again. And send every troop, every American soldier out of the region. So, my question to you, is it time for peace at any price with Iran? A, yes. B, no. At this moment, yes is at 23%. No is at 76.7. I'm just going to round it off. 77%. So about 1/5 of this audience believes that it's time for President Trump to accept these terms, to bring the forces home and to end the war, and to allow and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Iran will then reopen the full Strait of Hormuz. Gas and oil prices will come down. And yeah, it's humiliating, but basically I think a good chunk of you are saying the war is lost. Acknowledge that it's lost, and let's focus on the midterms and beat the Democrats before the radicals take over here. 617-266-6868. I want to ask you, do you agree? Yes, no? Is it time for peace at any price with Iran?
You know me. I'm a hard no on this, but that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. You can also vote via X, and I was very active on X last night. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhner. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Thanks for taking the call, Jeff.
My pleasure.
I'm a hard no on that. There's no walking away from this, but I have an idea that no one's mentioned. I have what I call a slice of the pie method. And what you do is that you basically beat the living crap out of them. You annihilate them. Then you form Arab allegiance alliance amongst the abutters of Iran, and you offer them new boundaries to their countries, and you basically absorb Iran with this new allegiance and basically take them out, that they'll never come back because they'll be absorbed by the abutters of that area. And then you, as the United States, broker a deal that any of the natural resources in that area that, we'll purchase and buy from, all of the new nations and all of the new allegiance that would be formed, basically taking out Iran forever, eliminating the Ayatollahs. They'll be destroyed. You have to have some skin in the game for the abutters, because they would increase their territories, they would increase their wealth, and Iran would be absorbed.
Well, Dan, in theory, what you're basically saying, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're basically replicating the strategy. You're applying it to Iran, I get it, but of what we did to Nazi Germany. In other words, us, along with our allies, together, especially the countries, closer to Germany, that, as you put it, abut Germany, in this case, abut Iran, come in and slice Germany up into pieces or into zones of occupation or whatever you want to call it. And so I think in theory, it's an excellent idea. The problem is the regional countries, the Sunni Persian Gulf countries, don't want to do it. The Saudis don't want to touch Iran. The Kuwaitis don't want to touch it. The UAE don't want to touch it. Bahrain, Qatar, for many, many reasons. The big one being that Iran is a very mountainous country. It's a very vast country. It's the size of Western Europe. It's a heavily Shiite country. It does have a lot of other ethnic religious minorities. There are some Sunni in Iran, but a lot of these minorities are non-Muslim. They're, Kurds or others. And so it will lead to a massive civil war. And they're very wealthy. These countries are very wealthy, but they don't have the manpower to sustain a massive civil war. These are not countries with a population of 100 million the way Iran is. So what they really ultimately want, this is what they ultimately want. They want Trump to make a deal that opens the Strait of Hormuz so their economy can get rolling again, their oil can start flowing out again. And then they want to undermine Iran subtly, covertly, and then have the regime collapse from within. And they would love to see the Shah come back, or just a much less revolutionary, radical, dictatorial regime. That's ultimately what they want. So that's why they're urging Trump, play the long game. Don't play the short game. This is what they're telling him. In other words, get some kind of a workable deal over the Strait of Hormuz, and then covertly you can wear them down. And one of the things they're now aggressively pushing is to arm the Kurds. Trump didn't like it. He was opposed to it. He may be more open to it now. Arm the Kurds, start a domestic insurgency within Iran, and then start arming not just the Kurds, but then the opposition that has really grown against this regime. And so this way, the regime now is being corroded from within. It's now facing an internal rebellion and an uprising and an insurrection that is just going to weaken it and weaken it and weaken it, especially if we keep the blockade and the sanctions on them. So we're just going to keep turning the economic screws into this regime. So they would rather do, if you want to say, soft power over hard power. So that's why they're urging Trump, give negotiations a chance. Look, I don't know. I'm not on the ground. I'll be honest. I don't. I'm not in Iran. I don't know how close the regime is to collapsing. I don't know how much of a push you need to give it for the whole thing to finally come, crashing down. All I can just tell you is this. The terms that they have now offered, the demands that they're making, are not just unacceptable, they're an insult. And when I hear the foreign minister come out and say that he has such disrespect and loathing for the United States that he refuses to even speak to an American official, I'm sorry, you don't treat any country that way. We were willing to talk to the Nazis after World War II. We were willing, I know we wanted unconditional surrender, I get it, but we met with them and we met them face to face and then they signed the unconditional surrender. When we had unconditional surrender over the Imperial Japanese, my God, we hated them. They killed so many American soldiers, but we still paid them the respect of seeing them face to face as they signed the terms of surrender. And in some cases, we had to, we worked with them for a couple of years under MacArthur to help recover and rehabilitate Japan. So what I'm saying is, I've never seen this. Look, I remember this was months ago, Dan, and people may have forgotten it. It was when they began to meet for the Memorandum of Understanding. This was, I think, in June. Okay, don't quote me, but it was around June-ish. And it was at least a couple months ago. And they were in Switzerland. And our vice president, on behalf of the president, he was there negotiating on behalf of our president. J.D. Vance was in the room with Iranian negotiators led by this foreign minister, Aragachi. And Aragachi shook the hands of the Swiss officials, saw J.D. Vance from across the room, and deliberately turned his back on our vice president and refused to shake his hand. Could barely even stand to look at him. Couldn't stand the sight of him. And you can see on Vance's face like he was shocked. This is so undiplomatic. You just don't do this. It's so profoundly disrespectful. So, if you guys are going to behave like a bunch of medieval savage barbarians, that you can't even sit down and negotiate, well then I'm sorry, man, blank you. Well, I'm sorry, blank you. I don't know if I'm too old school. I don't know if I have a code of honor that doesn't exist anymore and people don't care for. But to me, honor now demands upon everything else. This is how you're going to treat us? What, do you think we're one of your women? That you can put in a burqa and then beat like a dog? Is that what you think? Well, I got news for you. So, look, Dan, I don't know what's holding back the president. It's obvious he started this war. It's obvious he thought it would end quickly. They told him it would end quickly. It has not ended quickly. And he wants out. He wants peace with honor. He wants to reopen the strait. If possible, get a nuclear deal. He realizes he's not going to get a nuclear deal. Now he just wants to reopen the strait so oil and gas can come back to normal levels. Inflation comes down. And we can wage an election campaign that will save our country. And my advice to the president, if we're loaded, if we're locked and loaded, then you just take this regime out and let the consequences fall. Whatever the consequences are, you know what? That's how the Saudis and the Qataris and the Kuwaitis are going to have to deal with it. And my advice to them, get in on the action. Every country that helps us, we're going to help them. So it's time for us to call in our chips. You know, if I'm the president of the United States, honestly, I'd say to France, how many times did we pull your chestnuts out of the fire? You're going to send in some troops now. You're going to send in some aircraft carriers. You're going to start sweeping those mines. To the Brits, I don't need to remind you you'd be speaking German if it wasn't for us. Whatever you have, I want you to send. Go country by country by country. And to every Persian Gulf ally, they do have strong air forces. They do. Saudi Arabia has an impressive air force. There are planes, but it's an impressive air force. Kuwait has an air force. Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, they have an air force. Israel, for the life of me, I don't understand this. We've got one of the best air forces in the world, one of the most powerful militaries in the world, chomping at the bit to just hammer Iran. I'd give Bibi a call and say, Bibi, the second time will be much harder than the first time. We're going to hit them. It's going to be so much more brutal. The second time, they thought they took a beating the first time. Operation Epic Fury. This is going to be Operation Epic Annihilation. We are going to bomb them to the Stone Age. And we're going to tell them now, no quarter, no mercy. This does not stop until you sign the terms of surrender. Period, full stop. That's it. In other words, it's time now for the United States to say pony up. We've done so much for the world, again and again and again. It's time for them now to have our back. Now, if they don't want to have our back, that's fine. But then we'll remember it. In other words, you want to lose NATO? You're going to lose NATO. You want to lose an American security guarantee? Then fine. Then don't join us. So I really think, Dan, it's gotten to this point where Trump can't, forgive my language, he can't F around anymore. Because the longer he waits, normally I wouldn't care. Just wait him out. What do we have to lose? Look, I paid almost $100 to tank up. Cost of gas has gotten high. I'm telling you the truth. Yesterday I tanked up. I couldn't believe it. It was, what was it, $93, $94 to tank up? It's crazy. I'm willing to sacrifice for the country. I don't care. But what I can clearly see, and Trump can clearly see, and everybody can clearly see, is you have now these Muslim Marxists rising completely and taking over the Democratic Party. They're winning primaries. They're winning them in blue states, blue districts, blue jurisdictions. And if the midterms go sour, if they go south, if it does end up to be a blue wave, forget Iran. We're now going to be fighting an Islamic insurgency here at home, literally in the very corridors of power. So my advice to the president is, if you've got to end this war to beat the Democrats in November, then end the damn war. And the best way to end it is to win it. Dan, am I wrong? Final word to you.
I think you're 100% right. We can't screw around with this anymore. The president's looking weak around the world. It's inviting more opinion for him to have to deal with. And quite honestly, if you want to be a winner in the midterms, you've got to win this situation, and you can't look like a loser.
I agree. In fact, look, let's just play out the scenario. He goes all in. Okay? Operation Epic Annihilation. He goes all in. The biggest attack since World War II, he now launches it. And let's say it takes a month. They gave him a 2-week. They said it'd be over in 2 weeks. Let's double it. It takes a month. Okay, now we're into September. He's going to get a massive... I don't do things for political calculation. I don't. It's the right thing. You do the right thing. But I'm just saying politically, he's going to get a massive bounce in the polls. Because people are going to say, well, whatever you think about the war, the guy settled the Iran question once and for all. The mullahs have been beaten to a pulp. They don't pose a threat. Their nuclear program is finished. The Strait of Hormuz is open. Oil, gas, everything is now flowing. And he has done something that presidents for the last 50 years refused to do. He finally took out the Iranian regime, or at least beat them so bad that they are now they're impotent. He basically shattered them. He demolished them. So people are going to say, well, you know what? He's a strong leader. And he took a major piece off of the chessboard of one of our major enemies. He's going to get a massive boost in the polls. I think there's no question. And it's going to give him a ton of momentum as he campaigns for candidates all around the country. So you don't do it for political reasons. I want to stress that. You do it because it's the right thing for the country. You know, if they're a threat, you get rid of a threat. But what I'm saying is, even politically, I think it'll work out for him. So I'm with you all the way on this, Dan. All the way. 617-266-6868. To me, the worst of all worlds is that this just drags on and drags on and drags on. Why? Because the president, rightly or wrongly, looks weak and impotent. The regime is still there. The Strait of Hormuz is still blocked or partially blocked or whatever, choked. Gas is high. Oil is high, which means inflation stays persistently higher, and that starts to go into everything. Food, groceries, everything becomes higher. So now you're limping into the midterms because the economic winds are against you. They're not at your back, they're against you. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, well, no, this is the worst of all possible worlds. Believe it or not, even just getting out. You say, okay, I'm done. I'm just getting out. Even that is better than this current strategy. Why? Because if you get out, and I don't like it just getting out, but if you just get out, then you can say, okay, we're out. The war's over. We beat them militarily. Now the world has to deal with the Strait of Hormuz. I'm washing my hands of the whole thing. And that's it. We're not spending another dollar, another dime on a war. So that's a chapter that I'm turning on. I've turned a page. Even that, then there will be a sense of stability. So even that, I believe, would be better. But this ceasefire, non-ceasefire, temporary bombing, tit for tat, couple strikes for a couple days. Now they want to negotiate again. We're back then. Now they're telling us, no, we have to surrender. We have to pay reparations. We have to unfreeze assets, lift the blockade. They make these ridiculous demands. Okay, I want to ask all of you, now that Iran has laid out a new set of demands and conditions for the Strait of Hormuz to be opened, and they include essentially an American surrender, lifting of the naval blockade, all economic sanctions, pay damages for the war to Iran, unfreeze all Iranian assets, and promise to not target or go after any of Iran's militias, their proxies, whether it be in Lebanon, in Gaza, in the West Bank, wherever it may be. Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad. They say once America agrees to these terms, then they will fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Should America take the deal, or should, as the Kuhner man is advocating, resume massive bombing? Or, door 3, just say to hell with it, go home, don't sign anything, don't agree to anything, just take all of our soldiers and just come on home and say, militarily, we clobbered them, and now it's up to the rest of the world to clean up the Strait of Hormuz. It's, we don't rely on that oil. Most of the world does. Europe, China, and India in particular, they get their oil and liquefied natural gas through the Strait. It's your problem. You deal with it. 617-266-6868. Joe in Abington. Thanks for holding, Joe, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. The problem is that the reason that we've never won a war since World War II, we win every battle, but there's only two outcomes to a war. You either have liberation or occupation. And we can't win a war when we don't have the people. So Trump might have thought that we had the Iranian people behind us, but apparently it's like America. They're split people. So some people back the Shah, and some people back the mullahs. And so we're not going to win a war unless we occupy the territory, which we're not going to do. That's why we couldn't win Iraq. We couldn't win Vietnam. We can't. We can win. We could bomb Vietnam to the Stone Age, and we did, but we had to leave in defeat. So no matter what, we can spend every missile that we have, and except the nuclear ones. And if we do that, what moral clarity do we have if we went into this to stop nuclear weapons and then we use them? So there's no way to. And plus, when we talk about having this giant capacity, the capacity that we had in World War II meant that we had no steel. We had no. We had gas rationing. We were all in on this war. We're not all in on this war in Iran. So of course we're going to run out. We had to give up everything to get the amount of munitions and the amount of troops in World War II. So the end game is there's no way out of this except, like you said, the third option, which is horrible, that we broke the egg and now we walk away.
Joe, I'm not doing this to trick you or embarrass you or humiliate you. In fact, quite the contrary. I'm doing this to bolster, I think, what your excellent point. Joe, by any chance, do you know what the population of the United States was during World War II, ballpark?
The same as Iran is now.
A little bit higher. Most Americans don't know it. I know it because I taught American history. That's why. So I had the figures in front of me. 150 million. So essentially, less than half the people that we have now. We're at about 330, 340. Do you count the illegals? Do you not count the illegals? But anyway, so we're about 330, 340 million. The figure that's more commonly used now is 340 million. So we were a nation of only 150 million then. So that's less than half. How many soldiers, how many men did we put under arms in World War II? Take a guess, Joe. Remember, 150 million. Take a guess.
4 million.
15.5 million. Again, that goes exactly to your point. Again, I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm just saying most Americans don't know this. I do. I was a professor. I'm giving a lecture. And so I had all these stats and I would just lay them out. But so we had a country, this goes exactly to what you're saying, that had less than half the population that we have now, with 15 million. Okay, let's leave out the half. 15 million men under arms. 15 million. That's how you win a war. With a declaration of war. With the entire economy mobilized. You're completely right. We went to Ford. We went to GM. We went to, at the time, to the big three automakers. And we said, no, you can't make cars. We need you to make tanks. No, 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 no. We need you to make bullets. No, no, no. We went to Cleveland, Pittsburgh, all these big stacks, these industrial stacks. And we said, we need machine guns, we need bullets, we need grenades, whatever we needed airplanes, and churn it out, churn it out, churn it out, churn it out. And you're right. We occupied. We not only defeated the Nazis, but when we took territory, we took it. We occupied it. Okay, so just to wrap up my point with Joe, and it was an excellent call by Joe. It's liberation or occupation. That's how we used to win our wars. You liberate people, and then you occupy, you overthrow their tyrannical governments, and then, that's how you liberate them, but you occupy them first by overthrowing the tyrannical government, and then the people are liberated. So, you go to World War II, we had a declaration of war, total mobilization, the entire economy, everybody sacrificed. Food rationing, gas rationing, you name it. The whole country working as one towards victory. 15 million men under arms. 15 million. And of course we wanted to minimize casualties, but we knew we were going to take very heavy casualties. We knew that. So we weren't afraid to say, D-Day. We knew a lot of boys were going to get slaughtered. We sent them because we had to make open the second front and push the Nazis out of France and then drive towards Berlin. Or we went through Italy. We knew that a lot of boys would die, but we had to knock off Mussolini and then drive up through the soft underbelly going up towards Berlin from the south. So and especially Japan, it was island hopping. It was vicious, brutal fighting. And we took the Japanese took more casualties, about 4-1, even 5-1. But still, a lot of American boys were dead. They were killed. Well, let's just fast forward to today. I'm just making an observation. Nobody wants to sacrifice. Gas goes up to $4 a gallon. Everybody's complaining. Politically, it's now become a liability for the Republicans. So, so that's already too much of a sacrifice for many people. We don't want to lose a single soldier. Please, I don't want to lose soldiers, but I'm just saying we don't want to have mass casualties. So that rules out ground troops. Well, how are you going to take over Tehran? How are you going to take over the capital without ground troops? You can't. The only way is if the Iranian people rise up. Joe was dead on. They're divided. They're split. Some want to overthrow the mullahs. Others support the mullahs. We saw that at the funeral for the Ayatollah, the 20 million of them that showed up crying, weeping for this mass murderer. So, okay, that's out. So far, the Kurds are not fighting. We haven't built up or armed a domestic insurgency. So they're not going to be our ground troops for now. So you're left with air, missile, sea power. Now, you can do a lot of damage. You could, maybe even break a country's will or a government's back economically by their civilian infrastructure, their power plants, their bridges, prevent them from selling oil by taking Karg Island, and then you're draining them of any revenue. So you can starve them both financially and with the blockade, literally starve them. But this takes time. Now, are we willing to wait? I don't know. The American people are much more impatient now than we were during World War II. For us, 6 months is already forever. That was a 4-year war. So what I'm saying is the country has changed. The way we fight a war has changed. And that's the reason why, as Joe is completely right, we win every battle, but we can't finish it. Because we're no longer willing to do what it takes to finish it. And so the question now is, what do we do? 617. See, because the one thing about the Iranians, they're willing to sacrifice a lot of bodies. even themselves. I mean, to give them their credit, they're like the Imperial Japanese. They're almost suicidal. They almost, as I said, it's a death cult. Dying gets you to Allah. Dying gets you your 72 virgins. So it's almost like they want to die. It's a very sick, perverted, it's not even a religion, it's a cult. So those are the realities. And Trump now has to navigate these realities. 617-266-6868. Kay in Rockland. Thanks for holding, Kay, and welcome.
For taking my call. I've been listening as I'm driving down to the Cape. I think if we don't do anything, if we just continue with rhetoric and talk, they're winning. We are going to lose the whole Republican Party because we give in, we cave, we don't annihilate. We need to annihilate. It's a known fact. People are going to die, and there'll be casualties. There always is. This is war. We should have known before we went in that these animals, they fight till the end. They don't care about their people, and that's that. We have no true allies except for Netanyahu, Israel. Very minimal from the other countries that are surrounding that area. They're the ones that should be scared. Either that or we walk away, we let it go and let them fend for themselves. But we had better be locked and loaded all around our borders and with our missiles to attack anything coming our way, because that's what's going to be in the future. I think the Republican Party is going to be gone, and we will be a one-party country. And we better get our burqas out. We better get a little dish rag out and kneel down to Allah and all that, because that's how I feel about it.
Well, I hope it doesn't happen, Kay. I really hope we don't become a one-party, basically Marxist state. Actually, now increasingly Muslim Marxist state, because it'll be a disaster. I mean, people say it can't get worse. Oh, no, it can always get much worse. Much worse. At a bare minimum, you're going to see a return to the Biden years, which were much. I know people aren't happy with, with inflation and gas and the cost of living. I get it, but it was much worse under Biden. People have forgotten how high inflation was under Biden, and the tens of millions of illegals that were pouring in, and the crime that was everywhere. I mean, those were some of the worst years in the history of the United States. At a minimum, that's what we're going to get. I think we're going to get even worse. So that's why I know Trump's people are listening. They listen to this show, and I'm with you all the way, Kay. Look, when you go to war, you go to war. And Americans are going to die, and that's just a fact. That's why, to our credit, when we have a debate, as we're discussing entering a war, it's a very passionate debate because we love our troops. And so people say, well, I don't think it's worth it. Some people say, I do think it's worth it. And that's why I always think you should have a debate, an honest debate. But once you've committed to war, and once you're in the war, you have to finish it. It's like getting into a cage fight or a boxing match. Unless you want to get your brains beaten out, you have your opponent on the ropes, you go for the jugular, you go for the knockout. And we don't seem to want to go for the knockout. And you're right, Iran is getting stronger. Iran is getting clearly more emboldened. And to me, what's scary, Kay, is the perception in the region now is starting slowly. It's not so far on the surface, but inexorably. You can tell they're like, boy, these Iranians, they're not backing down. And they're threatening to destroy all of the oil refineries, oil infrastructure of all their Persian Gulf allies. So the Saudis now are afraid of Iran. The UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, they're now afraid of Iran. And they're asking themselves openly, this is in their media, we give so much to the United States, we invest so much money in America. What are we getting out of it? I mean, yeah, we have a security guarantee, but are they really protecting us? because Iran's missiles and drones or rockets are hitting us. Here, this broke over the weekend. Another violation of international law. Iran, unprovoked, launched a missile and hit a UAE oil tanker ship. Direct hit. Direct hit. Now, luckily, nobody died, but the ship has been completely disabled. It's loaded with oil. I mean, it's burning, but no, they managed to put out the fire. But the point is, that oil is not getting through. The ship is finished. So what's happening now is they're starting to intimidate and bully their neighbors. And they're looking at the United States and they're like, yeah, on paper, you have all this, firepower and military and missiles and drones. But in reality, if you're not willing to use it, what's the point of having it? Very quickly, Iran throws down the gauntlet. Their top national security official, the secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, along with their foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, have now publicly told the United States and the world, one, they refuse to negotiate directly with us because, as they put it, they have such little respect for us that they can't stand the sight of the face of our negotiators, even the sight of them. And number two, and to me even more importantly, they now say that there will be no discussions on any nuclear agreement, any peace deal regarding their nuclear program. However, if we want to see the Strait of Hormuz opened, as President Trump does, then we must abide by certain fundamental demands that Iran says are for them absolutely bottom line and non-negotiable. Number one, United States must pull out all of its forces from the entire Persian Gulf. Number two, lift the entire blockade, lift all sanctions, and unfreeze all of Iran's frozen assets. We're looking at hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue. Furthermore, they want the United States to pay billions, if not tens of billions, in reparations, damages, whatever you want to call it, restitution for the war to Iran. And they want the United States to no longer target or threaten any of Iran's proxy terrorist militias, whether it be Hezbollah, Hamas, or Islamic Jihad. In short, they want the United States to agree to a surrender. If America surrenders, the strait will be reopened. What should Trump do? And are negotiations now a complete waste of time? 617-266-6868. Jim in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, Jim. The floor is yours. Go ahead, my friend.
All right. I'm going to try to quickly address the options, number one, and number two, the kind of the state of what's going on in this country. But the options, I see we have three, the three discussed, and kind of a fourth outside the box, which I'm just going to throw in there after. Now, the worst option, not just because I'm anti-war, it would be escalating. The reason is why? Munitions, number one. Everyone says it. Now, you could say Trump says we do, we don't. He also said we won 40 times this war. We did. I do think we're low on munitions, defensive and offensive. Refineries. So if this continues, they will hit the refineries and we'll never get those oil prices down ever. People forget about refineries in the Middle East that they can hit very easily. Immigration would skyrocket. And you're forgetting Israel is the size of New Jersey. That country, you think they're in danger now? Forget about it. They would be beyond existential. And then you probably see a nuke because what else do they have at that point if you get surrounded by millions and millions of Arabs and once you're dead? All our allies in the region destroyed, like I said. The Red Sea as well closed, the Strait closed. It's not going to open up. And then Russia, China, North Korea would get more involved, which they already are. And we're vulnerable here. People forget. We have our power plants here. Our water supply is vulnerable. We haven't really upgraded these in decades. Terrorist cells are here in the U.S. That could be another thing we deal with. So escalation would be terrible. And by the way, there's no support of it. And that brings up another quick thing. The deep state and doing a mass casualty event here. I wouldn't hold it past them. Whether they would know about one or let it or do it, whatever that would be, I would be concerned about that they want to get more support for war, and that's how you do. But to me, that would only divide the country further. People clamoring for war more or people clamoring for peace more. So number one option to me is just a no-win scenario for anybody. Number two, an agreement. It's bad for us. Of course, it's a win for Iran. I don't like it. It's an official admission of loss. I don't like it. It's better than number one, but it's still really bad. Option three, walk away. Yeah, it's still the best three. I think it's still the best case because there's a shot we could economically we could survive. It's going to hurt a lot of other people. It's definitely going to hurt Iran too. People forget Iran's suffering through this. We're not going to give them anything. They hurt. They get worse, and then maybe we'll see some rebellion in that country, which we want. Your previous caller about liberation and occupation is very correct. And there's a good shot at liberation there. And I still think with that would be a real possibility at us having a shot at a win and Iran getting them to fall down. And I think that's, and the fourth option, I just threw it out there. This is a really random option, but let's look at the world as it is. You got China, Russia, U.S., the three spears of world power. Now, as far as NATO goes, I'm sorry, they're just a byproduct of the U.S. at this point. They're they're a social project of ours. If you look at the status of power in the world as it is, if you want to get these three powers together, you want to get the world on one page, you give Russia, Ukraine, you give China to one, and we get Iran out of it. Meaning, kind of have your hands of Ukraine, kind of have your hands of Taiwan, and have your. And I don't like that, but you know what? Russia's already taking Ukraine. They're hitting Kiev really hard, and I don't see that going in Ukraine's way. China could pretty much walk into Taiwan at this point if they want. They don't have to fire a bullet. And U.S. and us with Iran, it'd be nice if we can actually get something out of that. So I know that sounds a little crazy, but at the end of the day, that is an option. There's some things people could brainstorm, but option 1 and 2, terrible. And the other thing I want to try to discuss as quickly as the situation in this country. Now, I thoroughly disagree with the Democratic policy, but never will I call my neighbor an enemy. And the reason I say this is this. The more we fight each other, call each other terrorists or white supremacists or Nazis or fascists, man, Jeff, not only is that civil war, that is playing into. I'm American. I'm a Christian American who loves this country, thoroughly love this country. I want to see it stay together. Now, I might disagree with policies, but I will never look at my neighbor as the enemy because what that does, it will make us divide. It will make other. I mean, would I rather be divided amongst my neighbor or have North Korea come in here and whip my family? I would rather be an American, which still has, some power in my own country. So that's the thing, because to me, the threats are this. We have AI as a threat. We have biological. We have gain-of-function research. We have nuclear threats. And we have the oligarchy deep state. I mean, we're fighting each other. I hate it. I don't like it. I punch up. I don't punch left and right. I think if we did that more often, we'd have a better society. And when I look at, people, whether you like Tucker or not, I mean, that's what he's been saying. People like him were taking over this party right now, you're going to see Republicans go forward. You're going to see immigration get under control, which we forgot about that. You're going to see, people's pockets are going to get a little better. Things will change. But number one, we need to unite. We have to unite on things that just make common sense. Let's just be honest. And, we should go to war because if we continue this war, I told you, there's no good outcome of that. Nobody wins. Walk away. Try it out. It's not going to hurt. I don't know about that fourth option I presented, but listen, I'm thinking of everything else. But Jeff, that first option, nothing good will come out of that. It just won't. It hasn't. We've seen it. And this is on such a higher scale. You said it best, too. You had, 10% of our population was involved in World War II. Good luck with that now, Jeff. That's not happening. You're not going to see
10%. You're right, Jim. Look, 10% today, then it was 15 million, under arms. I mean, I'm not talking about everybody in the civilian economy who were working around the clock, multiple shifts. Women were working, obviously able-bodied men were serving in the military. But other than that, you had men working around the clock. I mean, it was, you want to talk about national unity and cohesion, togetherness. That's what helped us win the war. It truly was a patriotic war. We haven't been united in so long. And look, Jim, this is, let me just put the cards on the table. We are deeply divided. I know you want us to love our neighbors. I'm a Christian. I believe in loving thy neighbor. but your neighbor has to love you. And whether we want to admit it or not, we are in a political civil war. We're in an ideological civil war. We're in a cultural civil war. You look at the Democratic Party now, it has become so radical, so extreme. It is an Islamo-communist, anti-American, frankly anti-Semitic party. And I don't think you can put that genie back in the bottle. Now, it doesn't mean you kill them. It doesn't mean you imprison them. It doesn't mean you strip away their rights. They're Americans. They're entitled to full rights under the law, under the Constitution. But you have to be aware of the threat, and you have to beat them at the ballot box. And you have to understand the nature of the threat. And I think there's no question when you have the Democrats now openly rooting for the defeat of the United States and now bringing in pro-terrorist Marxists into their ranks. I'm not saying pro-Palestinian. Literally supporters of Hamas. People that openly call, who say America deserved 9/11. Deserved it. Cheered on 9/11. 3,000 Americans dead, and they're cheering it on. Or openly calling, their words, not mine, for blood on the streets. Kill them, and don't stop killing them, as Hassan Piker said. Kill the small business owners. Kill MAGA. Kill conservatives. Kill people who voted for Trump. Just kill them. Confiscate their property. Take everything they have. You're not dealing now with a democratic movement. You're dealing now with a totalitarian movement, a national socialist movement. And that is very difficult in a democracy or a republic like ours to confront. It's very difficult. And that's why, to be honest, my fear increasingly is becoming internal and less external. And look, I think we have to, all of us have to come to a realization. Joe Biden sold us out. That's just a fact. Catherine Herridge, and I'm probably going to discuss this story. I know I'm going to discuss it sometime this week. But the investigative reporter, Catherine Herridge, has now found the smoking gun documents. She has them. They've been declassified. She has them, and she's now releasing them, which shows beyond the shadow of a doubt that Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and the entire Biden family were being extorted and blackmailed by the Chinese Communist Party because of all the money they took over the years, and that they were effectively calling the shots under the Biden presidency. They were the puppet masters pulling the strings. We have fifth columnists now in the Democratic Party, and as president for 4 years, we had essentially a Manchurian candidate on behalf of Beijing. Well, what was one of the things that Beijing wanted? A, they wanted to flood our country with illegals, which Biden did. But the other thing was to hollow out our military. And what did Biden do? And if you remember, for years, I was saying, stop sending all of our finest weapons to Ukraine because you're depleting our stockpile. And God forbid, if we need it when we go to war, whether you're for the war or against the war. But the one thing you don't want to happen to your country is in the middle of war, you have no more weapons. Or you're too low on weapons and you can't replenish them in time. Well, what happened under Biden is he depleted our interceptors, THAAD missiles, Patriot missiles. He gave away the store to the Ukrainians, to the point that when Trump got into power, they weren't able to restock them because these things take time. It's not, like ordering a cheeseburger. It takes years to restock. And now we're running low on munitions. It's a fact. And primarily it's because Joe Biden gave away what's sold, gave away to Ukraine so much of our military stockpile. It's freaking treason. So this is where things stand right now. I think there's no getting around it. The Ukraine war ultimately screwed us in so many ways. And the Europeans were the ones urging us to arm Ukraine to the teeth. And now we're battling Iran, again, whether you're for it or against it. And where the hell's NATO? Nowhere. They're all telling us they're petrified of Putin. That's what they're telling us. They're telling us he's Hitler. That's all I keep hearing. You read any newspaper in Europe, Putin's Hitler. Today Kiev, tomorrow Warsaw, and then Berlin, and then Rome, and then Paris, and then London. So America, please, please, please send Ukraine all the money you can. Send them all the weapons you can. And we sent them hundreds of billions of dollars. Hundreds of billions. And NATO just watched and watched and watched. And now when we need them to help us, like a bunch of leeches and parasites and users, they're nowhere to be seen. The Europeans, again, have shown themselves to be utterly treacherous. And that's why I've been saying now for a long time, get out of NATO. I understand why they want it. Why do we want it? When you've got a sponge and a user who's bleeding you white, cut him loose. That's not a friend. That's a parasite. And so this is where things stand right now. Look, I think China now will take Taiwan. I mean, I don't want them to take Taiwan. I think it would be very bad. They have a vital cutting-edge chips industry. It's going to be economically really bad for us, devastating, in fact. And I think it's going to shock Asia. I think it's going to plunge Asia into a massive geopolitical crisis. But I think now, with the lack of the American deterrent, with what we're seeing with this sort of ambivalence on whether we can, if we can't defeat a second-ranked power, I don't know if we scare Russia and China anymore. And so I think China will make a move on Taiwan, probably in the next presidency. They're not going to test Trump, but I think the next president, especially if it's a Democrat, Taiwan is gone. Gone. And the Russians slowly, grindingly, are winning the war in Ukraine. And I think eventually Zelensky is going to have to sue for peace. Then he's going to have to confront his people and say, this deal was on the table years ago. Years ago. And now after so many Ukrainian dead, and so much of Ukraine's infrastructure and their cities flattened and destroyed, essentially a country in rubble. Now you decide to sign a deal that you could have signed 3.5, 4 years ago? And I think that's going to be the end of NATO. Once that happens, NATO and their leaders will collapse because they pushed a phony, fake war against Russia that they knew Ukraine had no chance of winning. So they fought to the last Ukrainian. And honestly, these people turn my stomach. And I think you're looking now at a shakeup in the New World Order. And the question now we have to ask ourselves is, what's our role? What's our role? And what are what is America's top national security core interests? We have to define them like adults and then defend them. But there's no question we are still paying for Biden's presidency. There's no question. We gave so much of our stockpile away. And now, I mean, I've never seen this halfway through a war. It's like What? The interceptors are low? Are you kidding? And then the worst part is they're leaking. They're leaking. Biden's former Secretary of the Air Force literally was caught this weekend. Huge story. Leaking all of the details about the deficiencies in Air Force One, the new Air Force One, the vulnerabilities in Air Force One. He was the one that was leaking to the New York Times. So they're deliberately leaking to weaken and sabotage Trump and his presidency, and in the process, the United States. I mean, this is freaking treason. So people say, Jeff, why don't we win our wars? Because during World War II or World War I or the Spanish-American War, I could go on and on, we didn't have active fifth columnists trying to subvert us at every single turn. Now we do. That's why generally my view is don't go to war. Not because I don't believe in the American soldier or American forces. Quite the contrary. It's because I've seen this movie so many times where the political leadership will stab the military right in the back. And then I'm going to be brutally honest with you, like I'm in the confessional. I don't talk about this, I just do it. You have no idea how many events I do for disabled veterans. I know we do the big radiothon every year, and I'm happy to do it. But I go to so many of them. I give speeches. I raise money. I shake their hands. I take pictures with them. It is heartbreaking. 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 But, Don Rumsfeld and George W. Bush are doing very well. Obama and Milley and Hillary Clinton, they're doing very well. They're doing extremely well. So they sent our men and women to war. It's the men and women who suffered. It wasn't them. In fact, they emerged much richer and much wealthier after their wars. 617-266-6868. So my plea to President Trump is, finish it. Finish it. Or don't go to war. Because I'm tired of this. Okay, just very quick. I know the lines are blazing. But this is now what we are starting to deal with here in the United States. And it is eerily similar to what we're seeing across Western Europe, Canada, Australia. They're just more advanced than we are because they've let in so many more Muslims, militant fundamentalist Muslims, into their societies and into their countries. In all across Michigan, mosques now are calling to, quote unquote, kill all Americans. Entire auditoriums. This is happening primarily in the greater Dearborn area. It is also happening in Minneapolis, where there's a large Somali Muslim community. And entire auditoriums are chanting, quote unquote, death to America. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis sent out a major post on X showing all these examples, clips of these prayers in mosques and auditoriums packed with American Muslims. And as Florida Governor DeSantis said, I never in my wildest dreams, in my worst nightmares, thought that I would be hearing or seeing this in America. And just to give you an example, this is now what they regularly are chanting. This is what they're praying for in mosques and auditoriums here in America. By the way, in Dearborn, they went 99% for Abdul El Sayed. 99%. Quote, until we turn the White House into a Husseiniya, which is an Islamic center, we will all continue to shout, "Death to America." At another mosque, "O Allah, destroy the Americans and their supporters without leaving a single one. Kill them one by one." At another one, "O Allah," this was in Michigan, "O Allah, kill every Jew, Christian, and American." And another one, "Allah, give victory to Islam and raise the standing of the Muslims." Another one, "Allah, our Lord, they are waging jihad for your sake. Annihilate them, O Allah. Annihilate the Jews and the Christians, for they are no match for you. Kill them one by one." Another one, this I believe is in Minneapolis, "Allah, annihilate the Crusaders, for they are no match for you. Support us against the infidels as you promised us." And on and on and on it goes. And on it goes. Where's the peace? Where's the peace? And then moonbats and liberals are going to say, "Oh, you're just looking at a few of them." Well, is there any Jewish synagogue that talks like this, that chants like this, that prays like this? Is there any Christian denomination where the preacher or the priest or the reverend or whoever from the pulpit is saying, "Oh God, kill our enemies, slaughter them all. Don't stop, don't stop killing them until they're all dead"? Of course not. And this is, by the way, routine. You hear this in Europe, in Canada, in Australia all the time. What they call, quote, radicalized mosques. So let me ask you, why are we bringing them in? By the millions and millions and millions. This is insanity. It's time for mass deportations. These are the people, by the way, that want to propel Mamdani and El Sayed to even greater and greater power. Ilhan Omar, those are her shock troops. Now, furthermore, one more, and then I want to go back to the phone lines. This is huge. I'm going to post it on X after the show. I hope as many of you can please resend it or repost it, because we have to get the word out there. Hassan Piker, who's now the darling of the Democratic Party, the guy who's campaigning, with Mamdani. When Mamdani ran, now he's campaigning with Abdul El Sayed. On his podcast, I'm quoting you now directly, said that the goal of the Democrats is to flood illegals into the United States with third world migrants and Muslims. Why? Forgive me. So they can, quote unquote, the F word, I can't say it, so they can F your sisters and daughters, to, quote unquote, destroy the white race. As he said, quote, "We're here, we want more immigrants to come into your countries, and then they're going to F your sisters, and then F your daughters. We're here to destroy the white race, bitch." I am calling on every Democrat to publicly denounce this monster and this scumbag. This is now the darling of the Democratic Party? All right, 9:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Russ in Boston. Thanks for holding, Russ, and welcome.
Jeff, let me start with this. Let me repeat what General McAuliffe told the Germans at the Battle of the Bulge to their surrender demands. Nuts.
And that's the same thing what I say to the Iranians. Nuts. And the Ayatollah and the whole bunch of that evil regime. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the choice is clear. Either we defeat them now or pay a devastating price down the road, without question. At the same time, we remind the world, do not bleep with us. Peace through strength and not peace through weakness. 47 years of appeasement, all we got was death and destruction. During World War II, Hollywood and the mainstream media went to war. Today, Hollywood and the mainstream media give aid and comfort to the enemy. Foreign and domestic. Again, foreign and domestic. Constantly giving aid and comfort to the enemy. And all I am saying is give devastating war a chance to defeat evil. In the midterms, the choice is clear. Vote for freedom or vote for communism. And there's no question. Vote for communism, and it's a road to the slaughterhouse. That's all it is. Just like sheep to the slaughterhouse. And Jeff, I hate to say this, I say it over and over again, okay? The majority of mass voters will vote to go down to the street to the slaughterhouse, without question. And I see it every day. I hear the BS that comes out of their mouth. All they do is repeat and repeat the propaganda that's dished out there. And that's what makes me sick more than anything else.
Oh, you're dead on. Russ, look, I got to say, this really is the People's Republic of Massachusetts. And I didn't think you could go more left, but they've actually gone more left. The way Markula, the way Markey now has openly embraced Mamdani, openly embraced the Hamas wing of the Democratic Party, the way Elizabeth Warren now. So now it's Syed that's her man. I thought it was Plattner that was her man. No. Now it's Syed. And what to me is incredible is not just how they're all marching in lockstep. You know, no prisons, no police, no ICE, no borders, no private property. I could go on and on. You've got to see the platform now they're running on. It's insane. But now, because I guess Obama is pushing this hard, now all of a sudden, Syed, if he wins in November, they are grooming him to be the first official American Muslim president in 2028. I mean, to me, Obama was clearly the first Muslim president, but officially. And this is a man who openly supports Sharia law. In fact, he brags. I don't know if you saw this whole thing over the weekend. It was disgusting. He brags about how his wife is always in a hijab. He goes, she won't step out. She goes, my wife knows. She better not step out into the public without wearing a hijab. And he was being interviewed by CNN, and Jake Tapper is fawning all over this Islamo-communist. And that's where Syed then takes a nasty personal shot at Trump, mocking him, saying, well, he's got a horrible marriage. He's got a rocky road marriage. Me, on the other hand, he goes, look at me and my wife, we're eating pancakes. Because they're trying to Americanize him now, right? They're trying to make him into an all-American Muslim family with his wife. Apparently she's some kind of a psychiatrist. And he goes, there's, my professional wife and I, and she's in a hijab, and we're all so happy. By the way, he's got property in Dubai through his wife. He's another phony and a fraud. He's been taking money from the Muslim Brotherhood for years. He's literally a front man for a terrorist organization. They now own rental property in one of the most luxurious areas. They have this really expensive condo that they rent out in Dubai. And there are pictures now. You got to see that condo complex. That's got to be the world's biggest swimming pool I've ever seen, in front of all of these beautiful, luxurious condos. And I'm thinking, hell, I want to get that condo. You got to see it. So here's this guy with his shtick, like Bernie, like all of them. They're such frauds about, the rich, the wealthy, billionaires. And this guy and his wife are lining their pockets They're taking money from foreign terrorist groups and front groups, and they're living high on the hog. And just like the Bidens, okay, that's the way they roll now. The money goes through the wife. It doesn't go through the candidate. It goes through the wife. But this guy now is mocking Trump and his marriage to Melania. So, as I said last night on X, you force your wife, this pro-terrorist, Jew-hating, Marxist Muslim, you force your wife to wear a hijab every day in public, a symbol of female oppression. You openly support Sharia law, which oppresses and enslaves women. And you're going to lecture Trump on his marriage to Melania? I'm sorry, but at least Trump doesn't put his wife in a hijab. At least Trump doesn't say his wife's got to live under Sharia law, which means she has no rights whatsoever. Of the two wives, since, Syed was the one who made the issue, who do you think is happier? The one forced to wear a hijab and live under this guy's mastery? There's no other way to put it. Because essentially he's a master and she's a servant. That's what Sharia law is. Or you think Melania, who's one of the most successful women in the world, who is the wife of the President of the United States, who has a wonderful son in Barron that she loves and adores, who's a free woman, a free Western woman, who can dress like she wants, who can drive when she wants, who can go to any school that she wants, who, by the way, is allowed to speak multiple languages because we don't oppress our women here, and doesn't have to cover her body and her head, or else her husband has the right to beat her. So these are the kinds of animals now that we're running against here in the United States, Russ. So, brother, I'm with you, man. The threat is now within. It's within. And the radical left can blame Israel and the Jews till the cows come home. The real threat now is we face an intifada from within. And this intifada has now essentially taken over the Democratic Party. Russ, final word to you. Am I wrong?
Right. And you know how much I enjoy every time you tell a story about your family that live behind the Iron Curtain. I love to hear those stories because I know them well, and more people need to hear them, Jeff. And really, this whole thing has reached a point of nullity with the enemy within this country. And remember that many things our leaders and the leaders of the communists have in common. But one of the biggest is they both live high off the hog, and they love controlling people.
Oh, you nailed it. Russ, as usual, you absolutely nailed it. Okay, 617-266-6868. Thank you for your call. Let's go to Pete in New Hampshire. Pete, thanks for holding, and welcome.
I've loved you in the morning. I've loved you in the afternoon. I have to start loving you at night more. Grace isn't getting the job done because you're waking up totally, completely wrong on everything you're concluding in the war in Iran.
All right, so Pete, tell me now, what do I have wrong? Go ahead, my friend.
What will happen to this country with $15 a gallon gasoline if you can find...
Pete, we're not cutting you off because you're disagreeing with me. Okay, we're going to go right back to Pete in New Hampshire, but first, it's Friday, the final segment. You know what that means. Time for Talk Back Tit for Tat. What did I say? I said Friday? Oops, I meant Monday, obviously. My bad. Final segment Monday. You know what that means. It's time for Talk Back, tit for tat, your voices, your reactions, your heart, the true heartbeat of Kuhner Country. We asked, you answered, and now we're sharing the best of this week's messages. Take it away, Mike.
Hey, Kuhner, you phony, you fraud, you.
Hey, Kuhner man, how much weight have you lost? You can't give up the Big Macs?
I thought Judge Janine was a pit bull, but we find out later she's a little chihuahua.
Jeff, with 2 minutes remaining in your show, you holler out your phone number for people to make a phone call so that they can be put on hold for the whole day because your show's about to shut down? I mean, come on, man.
Hey, Mike, if I get some information you're not going to believe, Jeff isn't going to believe it either. Ah, jeez, I'm up against a hard break.
Honestly, Jeff, Kuhner Country loves you, but I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels like enough with Iran.
Every single person in the Trump administration should hear Jeff Kuhner and let their conscience be their guide.
KUH, capital N, national, ER.
Mike, what happened to all of the Mike for President messages that people were leaving? Was that just your buddies you put up to her? You can't do a whole minute of of them saying Mike for President. Okay. By the way, thank you so much. We love the messages. We love it. It's one of our most popular segments. All you got to do, the best way to listen to the Kuhner Report, download the iHeartRadio app, and then you click on the right-hand corner right there, and then leave whatever message you want, pro, con, against me, for me, whether it's me, Sandy, Mike, and we will obviously play the best ones on the air. So download the iHeartRadio app, click on the right-hand corner, and let her rip, tit for tat. Okay, let's go back to Pete in New Hampshire. Pete, so you're against the war. You think it's going to be a disaster if Trump resumes bombing. We're going to be looking at, as you put it, $15 a gallon gas. Please pick up where you left off.
This president got us into a stupid war, and we want to take any more advice from him. He's fighting for Netanyahu, and he's the Secretary of State said so. His vice president called BB from the first negotiations. This guy he's bought and paid for, and I'm assuming the latter because I don't think he's that stupid, but this will start. They'll destroy the world. They'll destroy the oil industry in the Middle East and throw the world into a horrible depression. And it's going to be our fault and Trump's fault.
Pete, if you don't mind me asking, Pete, why do you think Trump wants to destroy the oil industry of the Persian Gulf? Because as you know, if they do that, that's going to lead to, you are right, that will lead to about, I don't know, $15 a gallon, but certainly $10, $12 a gallon. And that will create a global depression, and it will tank our economy, and Trump will go down as another Herbert Hoover. And if you remember, Trump gave a speech saying, that's why I want negotiations. I don't want to go down as another Herbert Hoover. So why do you think he'd want to do that?
Because he attacked the first time, didn't he? He started something we didn't have to mess with. He thought completely wrong. This would be easy. He took what Israel was telling him to do, and he did it, and he's got to be removed from office if he wants to do any more of this. This is not that
what will we feel like when there's an aircraft carrier at the bottom of the Persian Gulf with 3,000 sailors on it? We can't beat these guys, Kuhner. They've got plans and missiles. They know how to fight a modern war. We don't. We're still fighting World War II with our approach, and we can't beat these guys. This is serious.
Oh, it's serious. On that I agree with you. But Pete, look, I mean, I don't know. We've destroyed their Navy. We've destroyed their Air Force. We've shattered most of their air defenses.